Today's special. I always feel like Mother's Day's hard, and sometimes I think you need to hear from a woman's point of view and a mother's perspective. And so today we're going to do something different. We're going to have a woman speak life into you. And she's going to come up here, and she's not going to claim that she is Mom of the Year. She's coming up with a trophy. Don't worry. I think she's just going to be real, and she's going to be vulnerable, and I believe that can speak. And so without any further ado, can we give it up for Miss Lindsey Johnson? Yes, ma'am. All you.
Kaylee, my hair. Okay. Kaylee fixed my hair this morning, so.
We'll get you such
All right. Well, good morning. That was entertaining. This is going to go well. I can already tell. I wanted to start by formally introducing myself because most of you probably know my name. You probably see my kids, and my sister, my family. But I am the youngest of the three sisters of the Morales clan. I'm Lindsey Johnson. I've been married to my husband, Trevor, for 20 years. We have two amazingly talented daughters, Brooklyn and Bree. Brooklyn is 19. She's a student at LIT. She'll be 20 on the 22nd of this month. And Bree on Wednesday turned 18, and she's graduating from Westbrook on the 31st. I know it's shocking for y'all that I have two adult daughters because I look fantastic. I get it. I know. So April 12th at the Women's Impact Conference, I shared my testimony. So many ladies here are probably going to hear some repeats of some stories, and I apologize for that. If you have a problem, Keith is the one who asked me to be up here, and you may direct all concerns and anger towards him. So I'm up here today, and I feel like I'm going to give probably more of that traditional Father's Day sermon, because I feel like on Father's Day, we tend to focus on how men need to get it together and do better for our family. And on Mother's Day, we talk about how we're just amazing, demure women who just guide everything, and without us, everything would fail, which is true. But I want to talk to kind of everybody here. I'm going to give it from the perspective of me, my mom, my life. I have it written down because I am very emotional. I cry a lot. I'm blaming perimenopause. I don't know if that's true or not. That's not been formally tested. I just am going to use that as my excuse. But also, it's just funny. This is totally a caveat. When we were singing Refiner, when Keith asked me to preach Mother's Day, he told me to pray about it. Because I looked at him like he had lost his ever-loving mind, because Lindsey Johnson should not be on the stage telling anybody how to be a mom. But we sang Refiner, where he said, where I tell him, use me. So here I am. I'm crying because I'm so grateful, y'all. So you'll hear why. Anyway, I was telling a friend of mine that I am preaching the Mother's Day service, and preaching, not just giving my testimony, but preaching. And I said, it's just wild, Morgan. I said, my kids don't even like me that much. And she said, and I quote, according to the old folks, The more your kids hate you, the better of a job you're doing. So, apparently, I am the authority on parenting, and I am slaying this thing. Y'all are welcome to get all my wisdom. But I think, honestly, we can all agree today that what our desire is, oh, thank you. Thank you. I think what all of our desire as parents, as human beings, is eternity in heaven for our children. Honestly, I mean, we want that for everybody. Anybody in our sphere of influence, we want eternity in heaven for them. And so today when I speak to you, I hope that it's not just moms who hear me. I hope it's dads. I hope it's aunts, it's uncles, it's cousins, it's anybody that hears me and that you hear something and take something away from it. But like he said, I am not the best mother. I literally say all the time that I am mediocre at best. I'm not up here to pretend like I'm nailing motherhood. This might be the only thing that my girls and I can agree on. Do not think that I'm up here to preach to one of you because I've just gotten it right. I'm not here to say that once you get in a relationship with Jesus Christ, that things become mystically easy and that we have no more problems and that parenting is just a breeze from here on out, because that's not true. It's hard and it's exhausting and it's stressful and it's overwhelming and it's anxiety-ridden and all the things you can think of. So like a lot of you, probably, I have experienced extraordinary motherhood in my life. I have two grandmothers that were just amazing women. My grandmother, Mary Louise Humphrey, she is my mom's mom. She was a teacher. She was generous and intelligent and obedient. She was a teacher for many years, which I'm going to let you know is exhausting. And parenting after teaching, insane. It's just insane and overwhelming. But she cooked full course meals like regularly throughout the week. When I tell you like salad, entree, dessert, no matter what, and on top of everything else, she had a clean home. She faithfully went to church and she never cussed. The worst thing she would say was phooey. And if I said like dang or like, you know, like a substitution word, then she would get onto me because phooey was absolutely the worst it could ever be. My mama, Alice Morales, is my dad's mom, and she was raised Catholic and later started attending church with me and my family. She was baptized later in life, even though she was absolutely terrified of water. It took a lot of convincing to get her into the baptismal to get dunked because she had bad knees and was terrified. She loved the singing at church, which we grew up in a Church of Christ, and our a cappella harmonies were top notch. She always had her rosary, though. She always kept it with her at her bedside, and she prayed a lot. She could also cook, and somehow always had refried beans and tortillas ready to go anytime we stop by, which I think is why obesity is, strong in our side of the family. But she loved to laugh with us. She had boundless energy, and she followed behind everyone cleaning up. Even if you weren't done, she was cleaning up after you. These women were caregivers. They loved their children, had lots of grace for them. And that also extended to me and to my sisters and to my cousins. I could speak on the times that I was pretty unlovable, selfish, and they loved me and they helped me. Those are just some immediate examples of just outside influence and how those have been things that I'm able to emulate. Not the cooking, not really, that's not my strong suit. But what the foundation of each of those women, the thing that I can say about them that I know without a doubt is that they had relationship. They had commitment with Christ, and I think that made a big difference. Which leads me to my own mother, Sandra Morales. So last year, Laura, Lydia, and I did a video where we talked about our mama. Lydia talked about how my mom embraced Chloe. Lydia and Cody started dating when Chloe was 1. And Chloe got a new set of grandparents, kind of whether she wanted to or not. My mom said that is my grandbaby, which means that Chloe gets nagged just like her grandkids. She gets support just like her grandkids. She gets the worry that mom has just like her grandkids. There was never a transition period that Chloe wasn't her granddaughter. She stepped in, and as soon as Lydia said, "This is the man I'm going to marry, and this is the life I have," my mom said, "Done." Laura talked about her boundless energy. She worked full-time as a teacher, and again, like I'm saying, and she did junior high, y'all. And I don't know if you've been around junior high kids, but they're not great. They're not. Ooh. Okay, no offense if you're in junior high. You'll get better. It's okay. But she would work. She would parent us. She provided a stable home. She was at every one of our events. She was at church Sunday night, and Wednesday. She taught Sunday school. Her and my dad were youth leaders at one point. And it was extraordinary to see. And for me, I get to talk about my mom in a different experience because I've had her as my mother, obviously. I've had her as my coworker. I've had her as a professional mentor. She's been a grandparent to my own kids. She's been a personal mentor through parenthood. And she's also, I hate to say it, and if you knew us in high school, you would never know, but we're actually kind of best friends now. And so, but the thing about my mom is that she has faced extraordinarily difficult times, especially recently, and she handled those with grace and with faith. And I know that when she, throughout her life and throughout like just me having kids and things that we faced together, she's battled some really hard times, like questioning God's decisions from our lives. But she was so grounded in her faith that she was able to walk through all her battles flawlessly. Y'all have to get that. So anyway, according to Keith, if you're going to do a sermon, you have to have points. So this takes me to point one. I don't know if it's going to pop up there. Oh, look at that. Okay. Point one. Sometimes all you're doing is laying a stable foundation. So Proverbs 22:6 tells us, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Matthew 7:24-27 tells us, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall because it had a foundation of rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the wind blew, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. So today I want to give you some good news and some bad news, and I'm going to start with the bad news first because I want us to walk out here feeling somewhat positive on this Mother's Day. 2 Sundays ago, Keith ended his sermon with the idea that living a life that is in obedience and accountable at all times is important for our maturity as Christians. He gave a story about smuggling candy into the movie and his son calling him out on that. I want to let you know that my mother, I think this is where she failed for us, and I think I could have had a whole different life if she hadn't been so insistent on the candy smuggling into movies. My mom loves movie popcorn, but you have to layer the butter. Like, it's obscene the amount of butter that goes on. You have to have at least 80 napkins to get through because you're gonna be a mess. But we also needed the sweet treat to add to the savory of the butter. You need the chocolate, and you also need a Coca-Cola, a fountain Coca-Cola. But having 3 kids who are a little chunky and a dad who's a little thick himself, that can get pricey. And so my mom would take us and she would get candy, she would get value meals, she would get large fountain sodas and somehow get them into the movies without spilling anything. And it was just really crazy to see how she could do this. But And honestly, I was raised in a very positive, beautiful home. They were God-loving, they were supportive. My parents really were extraordinary. I give them grace for their personalities in general, but if you look at our lives, it really was idyllic. We went to church. Mom and Dad helped us with our homework, spent time with us, disciplined us, and took us to church every single Sunday, Wednesday, all the things. But unfortunately for them, despite all these things, I was bipolar and rebellious. I know. My parents were definitely at a disadvantage because I was raised in the 90s when mental health really, there wasn't a lot of treatment, there wasn't a lot of knowledge, there wasn't a lot of word out to what to do. So although my parents continued to take me to doctors and know that there was something wrong, finding the right course, the right treatment, very hard. And so when you take bipolar, rebellion, my bipolar tended to go through very major anger issues where I would just act out. It could be for something kind of silly. I would just be very angry and couldn't control it. And then I would also be very manic. So my mania would be just doing anything. Like kind of what, like at the moment if somebody suggested something, it could be the most insane thing, I'm gonna go for it. So when you take that and you take in my anger and you sprinkle in some depression and you sprinkle in high school hormones, you can just imagine that the Morales home stayed pretty dope at all times. At the women's conference, I talked about the ACE test, which is an adverse childhood experiences questionnaire. They claim that these 10 traumas that they question, if you have them in your childhood, it will affect your adulthood. So physically and emotionally, just how you deal with your physical health, your stress and anxiety, you kind of have all those things. I took the test and I found out that I am literally a 0 out of 10. And I don't say that to brag, I say that to reiterate that really, I was good. I was raised the right way. My mom and dad did everything right. Now here's the bad news. Although my parents did everything right, besides the occasional snack smuggling, I lost my way. Because of my bipolar disorder, I really leaned into self-medication. I also wanted to not be a carbon copy of my sisters and decided to just forge my own path. With my decision to rebel and self-medicate led me to just years and years of slavery to addiction. I remember saying, sorry, I'm not a pretty crier either, which sucks for y'all, so I'm sorry. I remember saying that what I'm doing, it only affects me. It doesn't make a difference. I'm an adult, I can do whatever I want. I can go live however I want. However, the cycle of substances and rebellion was absolutely destructive. I want to, though, acknowledge that my mother never loved me less. She had boundaries, she had expectations, but she never abandoned me. I lived in Lubbock, which is 12 hours away, and my mom would mail me carbon, she was a teacher, so she would photocopy scripture and put it in an envelope, and she would send it to me regularly. During a rough period of my life, I was deep into a certain lifestyle. I was really into drugs. I was really struggling, and my mom didn't know the specifics because she never really asked. She just continued to cover me in prayer. But I came down to visit, and we were sitting in a Luby's, and I don't remember what the conversation was. I don't remember why she said it, but I remember her looking at me and saying, "I do not fear for your future. I have prayed for you from the moment you were in my womb, the moment I knew, and you will be okay, and you will be blessed. You will have a husband, you will have a family, and you will be good." So, it wasn't long after that that I woke up one day in Lubbock, and I thought I had this prodigal son moment where I said, what am I doing here? Why am I living like this? I know better. I am better. So I came home. I called my parents and I said, hey, I want to come home. And they said, absolutely. They drove 12 hours to come and get me. They drove me home. And I gave up a lot of things when I came here. I really gave up a lot of the drugs. But unfortunately, I really leaned into alcohol during that time. So here's the thing, just to clarify, I am not an alcoholic per se. I have an escaping addiction, which means that I just don't want to deal with stress. I don't want to deal with outside emotions. I don't want to deal with really anything if I don't have to. And so I will do anything to avoid those things. Honestly, for me, that could just be anything that I overindulge in. Alcohol just was my mode of preference at the time. And during this time, y'all, I went to church. I was here every Sunday. Most days I was hungover. But I even served as a children's minister during that time because I was really good at playing a great Christian part. And I know this seems like a really sad story about how we have no control over how our kids turn out. And unfortunately, that's true. You can do everything right, and you can still have bad things happen to your kids. But where I want to focus is the triumph of this story. 7 years ago, on June 6, 2018, I began my journey into sobriety. And I have been alcohol and cigarette free for 7 years now. The reality is that these three women that I just talked about were not perfect. But remember when I told you about the foundation they had in common was obedience to God. My grandmother, Humphrey, has 3 of 4 of her kids here every Sunday. Usually, most of the time, when we can get one of them up. My Mama Morales had 3 of her 5 kids baptized here. My uncle died on that side of the family, but he gave his life to Christ. And he struggled with alcohol addiction also, and he never could beat it on this earth, but he gave his life to Christ, and we know where he is. So 4 of her 5 kids. My mom today has 3 of her 3 kids here. 3 of her 3 kids' husbands go faithfully to this church, and 3 of her 3 grandbabies are in this church today. So, this would not be possible if she wasn't a woman of faith. She raised us on a foundation of rock. Even when me, Laura and Lydia, but mostly me, went off the narrow path, we definitely kept it in our peripheral. And even in the darkest and depth of my addiction, I knew that I needed God. I didn't always understand it. I didn't always believe it, but she did it for me. My mother prayed with purpose. She lived with purpose. And that was the game changer for me. So the first part is the bad news about doing everything right. However, the good news is that redemption can come when we are raised or raising our children on the foundation that what is happening out in the world is not the important thing, but that what we're doing today, the God that we serve, that's our priority and that's what our foundation is, it can be a game changer. I was raised by parents that didn't just go to church on Sundays, y'all. My parents lived their faith even when no one was watching. I saw them studying their Bibles. I saw them praying. I saw them actively seeking God first. I saw them pouring into others and enthusiastically living a life that was consistent from Sunday to Sunday. They built their home on the rocks, and when the wind blew and the rains came, they stood strong. Point 2. God will fill in the gaps. 2 Corinthians 12:9 says, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. For my strength is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, most gladly, I will boast in my weakness, that the power of Christ may rest upon me." So this leads to why I, myself, am a mediocre parent. So Trevor and I don't know, most people know this, I assume. We have a very unique love story. I like to say that is a love story that just shows the power of love and how true love can conquer all things. So my husband moved in with my mom, my aunt and uncle when he was 15 as their foster son. He was 15, I was 10. So essentially, he's kind of been part of our family from that point on. We weren't really particularly close. He was older than I was, but I think the only time he ever really talked to me was when he was making fun of something I was wearing. I had a really cool black and white outfit that he liked to sing Michael Jackson. It don't matter if you're black or white to me. And it's an old song. Y'all might not know it. Okay. So when I was 23 and he was 28, we had a mutual friend who wanted to meet up at a bar. She hadn't seen Trevor in a while. We were roommates. She was like, let's go. And I said, sure, why not? Let's go to a bar. That sounds fantastic. After a lot of beer, the rest they say is history. I have a friend that calls him my husband. But again, if you were zoned out and you've ignored everything I say, please come back to me and hear that he's not related to me. Okay, we're not blood. Although you might question my kids, nothing is wrong with them. We're all good. So when Trevor and I were together for 3 months, we found out I was pregnant. And when I tell you we were terrified, I don't feel like there are words that can truly encompass the fear that we had. We decided to get married. It was important for Trevor to have our kids have his name. Him being an orphan, he wanted his kids to have his name to carry on. And so we kind of just jumped into marriage. And it's always just been me and him and the girls. We never had a period where him and I got to date and do those traditional things that I think you're supposed to do. We should not, by any means, have lasted 20 years together. We should have divorced a million times over, but God, literally, but God. And I do really love him so much, and I am so thankful that he's in my life. He balances me. God really did make this work. But as you can imagine, we were not prepared for parenting our 2 children. We were active in our alcohol addiction. We loved our children. We genuinely did, but we were very selfish. When Brooklyn was first born, I had told Trevor, who was a proclaimed agnostic, that I would be raising our children with Christian values. And so he agreed with me. He said that basically you can't argue that Christian values are a great way to build character. If you take the God out of it, everything else about it really makes sense. And it just raises good people. He didn't believe in the God part of it. And so that's what we did. My children were at church every Sunday. Like I said, I even filled in as children's minister when there was a need. So they were being taught the fundamentals of the Bible. But here's where I failed. I did not live outside of the church what I was teaching my kids here on Sundays. When we hear about the story of the wise man and the foolish man, I was definitely the fool. I was giving my children a foundation of sand, so when life rained down on us, our foundation epically cracked. I saw my kids going down a path that was exactly like mine. Trevor and I got married at 24 and 28, and when I was 38, I decided to get sober. So Trevor had actually been sober about a year before I made the decision. But that's a long time to build a foundation of mediocrity. So I was setting my kids up on a weak foundation. But again, here's the good news. My children were the catalyst to initially start my sobriety journey. I always knew that I wanted to change, but was not brave enough to step out on my own. My house was absolute chaos. It was a war zone. Nobody liked each other. Nobody talked. Nobody enjoyed time there. But then God stepped in. He placed a student in my class at Lumberton that was not supposed to be in my class. His mom was a teacher at Celebrate Recovery, which is a Christian-based recovery program. And one day I told her just in passing, like, I think I want to just go through the books on my own. Just give me the books. I'm going to do it on my own. And she said, absolutely not. We're starting a class on Thursday. You're going to be in it. I was not excited. I cried a lot and I had a lot of discovery. I knew that I had failed my daughters. I knew that those two beautiful souls deserve better. I just didn't know what to do. So I just started with fixing me. So during this time, I had a sponsor tell me that something she prayed continuously during her sobriety was God fill in the gaps. And so when I tell you that this was something I clung to, I said, God fill in the gaps. So if you've been through recovery, which probably most of you haven't, but there's a step in there that is called inventory. And it's awful. And it's a time where you go through, I did mine as a questionnaire that was given, the AA gives out, and it's pages of questions, and it goes through every hurt you've endured from childhood to adulthood, everything you've done to hurt somebody else, since childhood to adulthood, just anything that is something that is shameful to you or something that is causing you anger and bitterness. And the idea behind it is that when God shines a light on those dark shadows, that they lose their power. But if you've never done it, it's a lot. It's just a lot. I personally do not like acknowledging that I'm wrong. And again, Trevor, Brooklyn, and Bree will tell you that this is very true. But inventory has to be a daily task for me now. I have to question and evaluate everything I do. The simple prayer, fill in the gaps, has been a comfort to me. Despite my best effort, I'm also a human being. I fail. I drop the ball a lot. I still fight with my kids. I yell, I cuss, I become impatient, I'm prideful. But I know that God is able to fill in the gaps. In my weakness, God has proven to be strong. His power is evident. I am up here to boast in front of everyone. I know that I need God to redeem my failures as a woman, as a wife, and especially as a mother. Today, my world looks different. My house is by no means perfection, but it's also changed from 7 years ago. My kids are at church every Sunday. They both serve on the worship team. But more importantly, my kids love Jesus. My kids are working towards a life that just exalts him. And this is not for me. This is not something I did, because remember, I was drunk for 15 years. I didn't live at home in accordance to what I preached to them. And I played a great character, but he was able to fill in the gaps for me. So point 3, a call to action. Proverbs 27 says, the just man walks in his integrity. His children are blessed after him. So just a reminder from Keith said the past couple weeks that integrity is being honest and having strong moral principles, consistently acting in accordance with those principles, even when facing difficult choices or when nobody is watching. He gives us instructions all over the Bible. One I found in Psalms 119, 105 says, your word is a lamp to guide my feet and a light for my path. So I ask you today, who is discipling your children? What are they learning when you're at home? Are they learning that this Christian thing that you're telling them is important on Sundays is something that they need to dedicate their time to? Are they learning that actually everything else is more important? That life here on earth, which at the end of the day is so unimportant. Are they learning that giving 1 hour on Sunday is enough? And that's all they need to do. If you don't know what to do or where to start, just start with living a life that is full of integrity. Paul told us in 1 Thessalonians 4, "Finally then, brothers, we ask and urge you in the Lord Jesus that as you receive from us how you ought to walk and to please God, just as you are doing, that you do so more and more. For you know what instructions we gave you through the Lord Jesus, for this is the will of God, your sanctification." Essentially, once you know better, you have to do better. And that's scary. I know that. I did the step. I stepped out on faith, and I had to go into the fear of the unknown and the fear of breaking habits and the fear of changing my life when I didn't really know what to do. And things changed, and my whole life was altered. But today I can stand in front of you, and I can boldly say that it works. So today I pray that each of us are boldly ready to claim that we need his help. I pray that you're receiving this as a call to realign your life to the Savior, to be disciples in Christ in our homes. If you know Jesus, I pray that your walk is upright and consistent. That foundation, I can assure you, will be absolutely invaluable to the babies you're raising. If you are not living a life that is consistent and full of integrity, and you worry that about your children, what you decide today can make absolutely all the difference in the world. You can be a Sandra Morales that is bold enough to look at her prodigal daughter and say that I have prayed for you from the time you were in my womb, and I will not fear for you anymore. I pray that you will be a person that is ready to seek God daily, a person that allows him to reveal himself to you, because knowing him and loving him are two different things. Being in relationship is different than showing up once a week, y'all. You need to have a heart that is ready to embrace what seeking love and gaining knowledge in God provides. 5 years ago, when my kids would mess up, I would just see them going down the wrong path, and I would be absolutely devastated. But today I can tell you that I'm not up here crying because I'm fearful. Yes, I want to protect my children, and I want their hearts and minds to be protected. But God has already assured me that he's got this. So let me circle back to Matthew 7, where he says, "Whoever hears the sayings of mine and does them, I will liken him to a wise man who built his house on a rock, and the rain descended, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat that house. And it did not fall, for it was founded in rock. And everyone who fears these sayings of mine and does not do them will be likened to a foolish man who built his house on sand, and the rain descended, and the flood came, and the winds blew, and it beat on that house, and it fell, and its fall was great." Both houses had the winds blow. Both houses had the rain come. The only difference at those houses was the foundation. So I ask you today, what are you building your foundation out of? Are you continuing to shovel sand and try to save this failing house? Because if you are, I'm going to ask you to stop. Start building your foundation on rock, guys. It is a game changer. Today, all I can do is lay a solid foundation and trust that God will fill in absolutely all the gaps for me. And you may feel like you've messed up too much to make a difference, but I'm living proof that if you just give God what you have, he will fill in the rest. So, that's all.